In 1984, the Ingsoc Party was in the middle of implementing a new type of language called, quite creatively, Newspeak. It would take time, however, to replace all the unnecessary Oldspeak words with the more useful, efficient Newspeak words. Words that meant the same thing were thrown away. Why did words like fantastic, ecstatic, and amazing exist when they could be covered by the word good? If something was better, it would be double good. Something bad was simply ungood. Language was simplified as much as possible. The goal of the party was to have any idea divergent from the Ingsoc doctrine literally unthinkable. All ambiguity and shades of meaning were purged out. Newspeak was designed to limit the range of thought, and there would be no room for philosophical discussion. In a world like this, how could one fight back when the thoughts and words of a revolution couldn't even be thought or spoken? This may seem at first glance to be the condition of some nightmarish dystopian society. But if you look closer, it hits much closer to home than you may think. The dumbing down of language is alarming. But it was not just the dumbing down of language that Orwell feared. He had just as much distaste for the overcomplicated use of meaningless words and dead metaphors that distorted clear, concrete verbiage. Orwell showcases this in his article entitled Politics in the English Language, by translating a passage of what he called good English into much more modern-day English type of writing. He uses a well-known verse from Ecclesiastes. I returned and saw under the sun that the race is not to the swift, nor the battle to the strong, neither yet bread to the wise, nor yet riches to men of understanding, nor yet favor to men of skill. But time and chance happeneth to them all. Here's the same sentence in a more modern-day English type of writing. Objective considerations of contemporary phenomena compel the conclusion that success or failure in competitive activities exhibits no tendency to be commensurate with innate capacity, but that a considerable element of the unpredictable must invariably be taken into account. Like, what the fuck? He states that this is a parody, but not a very extreme one. Every form of imagery and concrete illustration, sun, race, battle, bread, dissolve into these vague phrases. Orwell stated that the whole tendency of modern prose is away from concreteness. Now analyze these two sentences a little more closely. The first contains 49 words but only 60 syllables, and all its words are those of everyday life. The second contains 38 words of 90 syllables. The first sentence contains 6 vivid images and only one phrase that could be called vague. The second contains not a single fresh, compelling phrase, and in spite of its 90 syllables, it gives only a shortened version of the meaning contained in the first. Yet, without a doubt, it is the second kind of sentence that is gaining ground in modern English. Nuanced, concrete language from people like Martin Luther King has been replaced with short, punchy, simplified sentences and catchphrases. Designed by a whole team of linguistic experts, each word perfectly crafted, not a single syllable is wasted. Ads are perfectly choreographed pieces of marketing that are able to hit on every single nerve of your psyche. Modern pop music is watered down and perfectly formulated to be stuck in your head, just like the food you eat has been genetically engineered to trigger cravings and mindless eating. Every political conversation is filled with these crafted, ready-made answers that in our own mind will prove our wisdom and correctness. Pre-selected phrases, metaphors, and similes replace critical thought. It is just easier to use language that has already been selected and proven to be impactful, rather than diving deeply into what it is you really mean and letting the meaning determine the words, not the other way around. When you use these ready-made phrases, you don't have to hunt for your own words, nor do you have to bother with the structure and rhythm of your sentences. When you're watching a speaker mechanically repeat familiar phrases like atrocities, tyranny, and free peoples of the world, you get the feeling they are more a machine than a person. The right words are coming out of his mouth, but his brain is not involved, as it would be if he was choosing the words for himself. This is referred to by Orwell as duck speak, the act of one blindly regurgitating the doctrine of their party's agenda with no real consideration for what the ideas truly represent. When you speak in this way, there is no need for real introspection, no need to question the true meaning of what you are saying and where your ideas are coming from. You are empowered to use many syllables, but with very little meaning. This is one of the most powerful things you can do to stay in line with your party's doctrine. Thus, your ignorance has become your strength. Those who acquire power often portray their reasons for doing so as noble. They did it for truth, God, and justice. This is rarely true. Power has always been acquired for power's sake. Orwell realized this, and realized that this trick is often masked by language. Leaders, politicians, and media often use euphemism to mask a brutal reality. British rule in India, the Russian purges and deportations under Stalin, the dropping of the atom bombs on Japan, can be defended, but only by arguments which are too brutal for most people to face, and which do not align with the professed aims of the political parties. So political language has to consist largely of euphemism. Defenseless villages are bombed from the air, the inhabitants driven out into the countryside, the cattle machine gunned and the home set on fire. This was called pacification. Such phraseology is needed if one wants to name things without calling up mental pictures of them. This is the trick. You find a nice name for a horrific thing. Political writing and speech is often a defense of the indefensible. Very often the words chosen directly contradict the ideas they represent. Genocide was called ethnic cleansing. Genital mutilation is called circumcision. Bombs dropped killing the wrong target anywhere from 80 to 98% of the time are called precision strikes. The use of doublethink goes further and further. Manifest destiny, an idea taught in our schools that we were the society chosen by God to conquer and expand our borders without limit. The fact that it was our destiny, granted by God, softened the reality that it was the destruction of tribal organizations, confinement of Indians to reservations, and full-blown genocide. Our reasoning was that we were making use of land and resources that the indigenous were too primitive and backward to do themselves. A familiar scene played out recently as we celebrated our last Thanksgiving while simultaneously hosing and pepper spraying peaceful